how does Dave Dombrowski still have a job? Somebody, anybody. I am now convinced that this will be Dave Dombrowski's last year with the Phillies. And much like Daryl Morey, the similarities are absolutely there. Came in with the pedigree, with the name, with the winner tab, with, he'll do anything to win. But much like Daryl Morey, it will end with a parting of ways. It will not be fired. It will be a mutual agreeing to part ways, to save face. It's amazing how in sports, the respected guys get to part ways, and the guys that don't really have a resume to speak of, they get fired. But when you look at the Dave Dombrowski era, it has not really been great. And I don't mean to doom and gloom it, okay? Like, they've made the playoffs every year that he has been the president of baseball operations. He did make the change of firing Joe Girardi and bringing in Rob Thompson, and that, lit a fire under the squad. They go to the World Series. You look at his big moves, though, shit, you look at most of his moves, and I'm talking probably 90% of his moves, and they have been duds. Now, this is off the top of my head. I did hit thumbs down for this, but I didn't exactly do research for this like I should have. But this is off the top of my dome. His first year, he comes in and he makes a big splash because he goes after Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos. Kyle Schwarber gets a 4-year deal. Nick Castellanos gets a 5-year deal. We all know how the Nick Castellanos move panned out. I think the first 2 years of Castellanos weren't too bad, but then the last 2 were really, really bad, and it results in you paying $20 million for him to go away. He's now a free agent if you want to pick him up. Then you look at the Kyle Schwarber deal. That is, I think, his crown jewel, because there were people in the city, fans, pundits, hell, I was in sports media at the time, and I was one of them, who didn't want Kyle Schwarber, who thought it was a very Phillies move, that they were going to give a lot of money to a guy that was just going to be meh. And boy, was I wrong. I mean, when I look at predictions that I've made for the Philadelphia Phillies, the 2 people I was the most wrong about in terms of free agent signings were probably Kyle Schwarber and Zach Wheeler, and thank God I was wrong about them, because they've both been incredible. But when you look at the rest of Dave Dombrowski's time here, when all of those extensions started to kick in, when he started to go bargain bin hunting, and this is something I bring up in a lot of videos, he has failed. When you look at the litany of 1-year deals he has given out, I can't think of damn near one that has really panned out. And I'm talking like the Max Keplers of the world, Adolis Garcia this year. You look at Jordan Romano last year, Juris Familia, I believe, was one of his. When you look at the guys that were supposed to come in, and you convince yourself in the offseason, hey, like, if, in this ballpark with this hitting coach, blah, 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 and, with the pitching coach, and it has not worked out. And when the latest blunder is how the organization has handled Andrew Painter, with the Phillies announcing that they are sending Andrew Painter to AAA. Now, I made a video, and you can see it up there, about what the Phillies should do with Andrew Painter, and my thing was like, you just keep him here. You keep him here and you deal with it. I understand, though, why the Phillies are doing what they're doing. Because right now you have a situation where Andrew Painter is basically a guaranteed loss every 5th day, combined with the fact that your $24.5 million pitcher in Aaron Nola is damn near close to a guaranteed loss. Jesus Luzardo has pitched way, way, way better his most recent couple of starts. But for the most part, like, could you handle 2 pitchers who are guaranteed losses in Painter and Nola? Painter has options left. You send him down. I get it. Nola's different. Nola, you're just stuck with, and you hope for the best. But in doing this, and I point this out in the video, like, I worry that the Phillies are going to ruin him, because if you keep him and he's getting shelled in the majors, at least he's getting shelled in the majors. If he's getting shelled in AAA, yeah, that's not good. And where does he go from there? And then last year, he got shelled in AAA. Andrew Painter didn't exactly earn this 5th starter spot. He was given the 5th starter spot. And the Phillies did so because of his, quote, his stuff. The fancy word of just saying, like, if all breaks, he should be good. He's got the tools. But pitching so much more about things other than tools. And what I worry is the Phillies are going to Spencer Howard this kid. And I think they've completely botched it entirely. Like, you look back, and Andrew Painter had the hype, and at one point I think he was like the number 1 pitching prospect in Major League Baseball. But with the way they handled his Tommy John, not basically pushing him to get Tommy John as early as possible, which kept him out 2 fucking years, that is organizational malpractice. You then bump him up to AAA when he returns at the age of 22 or 23. I think he's 23 this year. And then you just hand him a fifth starter spot. And now you've got fans around Philly going like, and I saw it like John Marks' Twitter had this. Some idiot was like, release him. What? And then there's the people that are like, well, you could have gotten so much for him and you could have won a World Series. What? What could you have gotten for him? I'm not arguing that you could have gotten a lot for him, but what? Like, who was the big piece that you wanted? Because this is all revisionist history. Nobody wanted to give up Andrew Painter 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Nobody. There wasn't one Phillies fan that was like, trade Andrew Painter. And now all of a sudden, because he's got a 6 ERA and he's headed down to AAA, it's, oh, you should have traded him. Yeah, okay, bud. So I worry that they're going to ruin this kid. But more so than that, when you look at what the Phillies did, they came into the season with 5 starters in Wheeler, Nola, Sanchez, Suarez is gone. Don't get me started. Wheeler, Nola, Luzardo, Sanchez, and Painter. Then you obviously had Taijuan Walker, who could be a starter, but also you could, do the long man thing in the bullpen. And they released Taijuan Walker. Another blunder on the Dave Dombrowski era. 4 years, $17 million a year. They're paying $37 million for Taijuan Walker and Nick Castellanos to not play for this baseball team. Good job, Davey boy. Then you've got a situation of the Andrew Painter thing where when that doesn't work out, what do you do? The Phillies wanted to bring back Walker Buehler. Walker Buehler wasn't going to sign with the team, not because he didn't want to, not because he didn't like Philly, but because he wasn't guaranteed a rotation spot. And he goes to San Diego and he's guaranteed a rotation spot. And what this is going to result in is you're going to see another Michael Lorenzen trade. Kyle Gibson, which is fine. But now the Phillies have created another issue. And this is becoming a trend under Dave Dombrowski. The Phillies creating issues that are avoidable. They create issues for themselves. They create holes for themselves. So in this instance, you're creating a hole in the rotation because I'm assuming they're going to bring up Alan Rangel from AAA, but what are we expecting out of that? So now at the deadline, you're going to have to go out and get a back of the rotation starter because you're not going to want to pay top dollar for a big time guy. So you're going to end up getting a Michael Lorenzen, which is it's fine, but you shouldn't have needed that. Because in reality, what should have happened was Andrew Painter should have earned the fifth starter spot, not been given the fifth starter spot. And in an ideal situation, he would have been sent down to AAA because Taijuan Walker would have been your fifth starter. But Taijuan Walker didn't pitch like a fifth, sixth, seventh, or eighth starter. Even though last year I think he was okay, he pitched horribly. So that's after a couple years of pitching poorly, you end up getting released. Now the Phillies have a hole that they have to fill. And why do they have a hole that to fill? Well, I think in a perfect situation, you don't have a hole you need to fill because you could survive with having a fifth starter getting shelled every fifth day. But you have a hole to fill because of that Aaron Nola contract, which, by the way, was signed by Dave Dombrowski, who got baited into it because he was worried that the Atlanta Braves were going to sign Aaron Nola. So you end up handing him a 7-year contract, which as soon as pen hit paper, it was a disaster. And now you're stuck and you can't trade him. I made the case. You should have traded him in the offseason. You could have gotten something for him in the offseason. You could have painted the picture that, hey, this is a 1-year thing and he needs a change of scenery. And you could have found somebody. You could have found a pitching needy team that would have taken him and you could have used that money and you could have signed Ranger Suarez back and they didn't do it. So now you created that issue. Last year, you created an issue when you signed Jordan Romano off the bargain bin, another 1-year deal that did not work out. And when he doesn't work out and when Alvarado ends up getting suspended, you create a hole in your bullpen that you need to fill. So they end up going out and they end up getting David Robertson off, again, the scrap heap, which fine, whatever. But they end up going out and paying a high price in Eduardo Tait and Mick Abel and end up getting Joan Duran, who's been phenomenal. That's a blessing in disguise when I look back on it. When I look back on that, it's like it forced Dave Dombrowski's hand. And I made the video, and you can see it up here, about the Adolis Garcia injury being the same thing. It's going to force Dave Dombrowski's hand to actually look in the mirror and go, our right field situation is not good enough. Do you want to have a outfield with 2 rookies in it? Justin Crawford and Gabriel Rincones Jr. No, you don't. That's not a playoff team. You need to go out and you need to address that. They weren't going to do that if Adolis Garcia is healthy. They were going to sit there and watch this man hit 210, hit 21 home runs, and they were just going to go, well. But now they actually have to be proactive because they don't have a choice. But they created a hole. by once again guessing wrong. They went out and they signed this guy for $10 million. Last year was the same thing with Max Kepler. You guessed wrong. You're seeing a trend here. Dave Dombrowski guesses wrong a lot. I haven't even brought up the Kyle Schwarber thing. Yeah, he hit on Kyle Schwarber the first time. But then he had to pay a top dollar for Kyle Schwarber after Kyle Schwarber had an MVP-like season because you played hardball with his agent in spring training and basically said, hey, prove it. And boy, did he. Went out there and proved it and then some. I mean, the dude was on fire last year. And then you start this season and you have to fire your manager, who I made the case I think should have been fired after the postseason, but fine. You fire him, though, and this is crazy. You fire him with the idea of, we'll bring in Alex Cora because I hired Alex Cora in Boston and I'll fire Dave Dombrowski and I'll bring in Alex Cora. And when Alex Cora says, no, I'm good, now you're like, I guess we'll put Don Mattingly in there, I guess. I mean, look, the Phillies have enough talent on their team where they can win despite Dave Dombrowski. The thing is, a lot of their talent was brought in by Matt Klentak. I wonder if we're going to look back at the Matt Klentak era like we look back at the Ed Wade era. Because when Ed Wade was fired by the Phillies, we all looked at that guy like a giant moron who had way too much time. And what ends up happening is you look back and you go, this guy brought in Harper, he signed Wheeler, he drafted Stott, he drafted Bohm. Whatever you think about those players, they're not world beaters, but what they are major league players. And when you look at the Major League Baseball draft, it is a bunch of question marks, more so than I think any other sport. A lot of times you're picking guys in high school that have a ways to go and they just flame out as they go through the system. And I realized that for Bohm, he was at Wichita State. For Bryson Stott, he was at UNLV. But you hit on those guys. And because of it, you were able to enjoy the fruits of cheap labor. That's what Alec Bohm is. You know, I made the point of like, hey, I didn't want Bo Bichette for $40 million because he's not $30 million better than Alec Bohm. He's better than Alec Bohm. He's not $30 million better than Alec Bohm. And even though Bo Bichette's been playing a lot better lately, could you imagine if you had an infield of Bo Bichette and Trey Turner and those contracts being discussed right now? I think Trey Turner's a good player, and I think he'll turn it around. I think he'll be fine. I think there's a lot of doom and gloom out there about Trey Turner, and people are lamenting the contract and all of it. But could you imagine for a second those two guys, the amount of money they're getting paid to do not a ton at the top of the order? It wouldn't be good. I cannot figure out how this guy has lasted as long as he has lasted as long as he has. I need John Middleton to make a move. And it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen in season. And that's the thing. I look at this much kind of like the Sirianni thing. Like, the Phillies are about to punt a season because, I guess, of the embarrassment of having to fire your president of baseball operations and fill the role. I think Preston Mattingly's done a really good job. But the Phillies right now have a hole in their starting pitching, in their rotation. And one of the reasons why is because they've invested heavily in hitting prospects in the draft, whether it be Dante Nori, whether it be Justin Crawford, whether it be, with Aiden Miller. And for a couple of years there, like, they kind of ignored pitching. And Gage Wood was really the first round pick taken by the Phillies in a while that was a pitcher. When you look at the first round, even supplemental, I mean, they took, like, I'm throwing names out here, but like Kevin Gowdy that was the Mickey Moniak draft, but that wasn't Dave Dombrowski. That was Matt Klentak. He didn't pan out. Matt Emoff had the eye injury, but before that, he wasn't very good. I know that they've done it, but none of these guys are looking like future true pitchers. Gene Cabrera was the closest one they had going into this season. But with Gene Cabrera, he starts the year at AAA and he pitched so poorly he was sent down to AA. Back-to-back years, they take Painter, they take McAble, and they take Painter, and then after that, it was nothing but position players, and until Gage Wood. And when you have a situation where you created a problem in your bullpen by guessing wrong on Jordan Romano, and now you need to go out and get a closer, you end up trading McAble, which, again, is fine. Like, I'm not crying about the McAble thing. I think you sold high on McAble. That's fine. But, like, could McAble right now be the missing piece in terms of a rotation spot? He earned his promotion last year. Andrew Painter didn't earn his promotion this year, in my opinion. So I think you sold high on McAble, but what you did by making that trade, and it was a good trade for the Phillies, but what you did by making that trade is you put your starting pitching depth in your system to all but nothing. And now they're in a situation where they're going to be once again hunting for starting pitcher. And that's a problem. I think they're for the most part, their system is fine, but it is thin at starting pitching, big time. They took 2 high school kids again, and Mick Abel and Andrew Painter. And Gage Wood, I don't think it's a mistake. Gage Wood was taken out of college. More advanced arm, can get through the system fast, and he's already AA. But when you look at the Dave Dombrowski era, it has been nothing but miss after miss after miss after miss. And I think the team that he inherited was already talented enough to overcome a lot of those shortcomings and at least make the playoffs. But this team right now, they have deep holes. And again, I think this team will make the playoffs. And he'll go out there and he'll use assets that he could have used for a better right fielder, and he's going to have to split them. He's going to have to use assets to go get a right fielder. He's going to have to use assets to go get a starting pitcher. When in reality, it should have been all we need is a right fielder. To give him some credit, I think he crushed the trade deadline last year. He brings in Harrison Bader. Harrison Bader was great. You know, you traded Hendry Mendez, who was like a top 10 prospect, but like he was far behind Dante Nori and Gabriel Rincones Jr., so like he was expendable. As I said, the Mick Abel trade was fine. Eduardo Tate, I didn't like giving up on, but he's not having an unbelievable year in AA for the Twins organization. So, but he was your future catcher the catcher of the future. But you really have to look for the good moves that Dave Dombrowski has made, because they're few and far between. There's way more bad moves out there where you're like, what were we doing? And he will sit there, and he's so arrogant and cocky that he'll just go with it. Remember, Jeff Hoffman was great for the Phillies that year that they brought him in. And the year after, he was really, really good for the Phillies. Jeff Hoffman was only on the Phillies roster because Bryce Harper was on a rehab assignment. He faced off against Jeff Hoffman, who was in AAA at the time, in a simulated game, and he came back and he said, why isn't this guy on a major league roster right now? He's throwing gas. Like, he's filthy. And Dave Dombrowski was like, yeah, I guess we should sign him. I mean, there was a time where, like, Jeff Hoffman was opting out of that contract because he wasn't on the major league roster. And the Phillies, upon hearing this from Bryce Harper, were like, all right, we'll put him on. And then he ended up becoming a really, really, really good bullpen piece. Bryce Harper, you could argue, is a better GM than Dave Dombrowski. This, to me, is yet another example of the mess that Dave Dombrowski has created for this team. And I think that if the team needs a legitimate president of baseball operations, whether it be Preston Mattingly or whatnot, I don't really care. All I know is that the game has passed Dave Dombrowski by. We see this in sports all the time. Like in hockey, it's Lou Lamoriello. Lou Lamoriello gets praised by every hockey scribe and every hockey pundit. They love Lou Lamoriello because 20, 30 years ago, he created a dynasty. Lou Lamoriello since then has done nothing. Returning to New Jersey hasn't worked out. Islanders didn't work out. Gave bad contracts. Like, it wasn't good. Dave Dombrowski is the same damn thing. Made a really good team in Detroit. You know, Boston was a success. Has not worked out in Philly. Needs to go. Sooner the better, but it won't happen until the offseason. And I guarantee it will be a mutual agreeing to part ways. It won't be he was fired because we got to save face. Mutual agreeing to part ways. I will hop off my soapbox. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. As far as comments go, I'm only going to respond to channel members, so become a channel member. Subscribe to the channel. Hit thumbs up if you like this. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. I am going to go make dinner. While we don't cheer for injuries, let's be real. The Adolis Garcia injury is an absolute blessing from the baseball gods, because this will force Dave Dombrowski to actually go out and get a legitimate right fielder. This is the 2026 version of the Alvarado suspension. Allow me to explain. Last year, the Phillies went out bargain bin hunting, as they have been doing for the past couple of years, because the big contracts they signed have kicked in, extensions kick in, etc. You have to cut corners somewhere, and last year they did it in the bullpen. They signed Jordan Romano thinking, okay, he will be our closer. They let Jeff Hoffman go. I wasn't a fan of letting Jeff Hoffman go. It turns out that was a good move by Dave Dombrowski, and they bring in Jordan Romano. That was a bad move by Dave Dombrowski. Somehow, some way, Jordan Romano remained on the roster the entire season because Davey Dombo didn't want to release him. He was a disaster. He was one of the worst relief pitchers in all of baseball. He should have been released. And while he was given the closer role pretty much right out of the gate by the Phillies, he failed to close anything. In fact, he welcomed everybody in. He opened that door up. Come one, come all. It was a fight to the bat rack when Jordan Romano popped in. And what this did was it caused the Phillies to once again go by closer by committee, where one night it would be this guy, one night it would be that guy. It's just like, that never really works. With the Rob Thompson era, they have had one legitimate, you are the closer, and that was the 1 year that they had Craig Kimbrell. And by the way, he was really good that 1 year until October came, and then after that, he's been cooked ever since. But that was the 1 year they had a legitimate closer. I've never been a fan of closer by committee. I've always thought that it is a dumb idea. You need a legitimate closer, and this isn't just coming from me. This is coming from, I used to work with Ricky Patalico, who was a relief pitcher, and he's like, look, baseball players are creatures of habit, none more so than the relief pitchers. They want to know where they're going. They want to know if they're available, if they're not, and to every night have guys in flux, it's not good. So Jordan Romano gets excommunicated, if you will, from the closer role. The Phillies go by closer by committee, but Jose Alvarado gets popped for doing, Stacker 2. We'll go with Stacker 2. It was like a fat pill or something like that. Didn't work, but he got popped for steroids, 80-game suspension. He's not going to be going to be available for the playoffs. And what that forced the Phillies to do is go out and actually address the initial problem that was there in December. They went bargain bin hunting in December. It didn't work. They wouldn't have made a move had Alvarado not been suspended. I am convinced of that because their bullpen was pretty good. But Alvarado getting suspended, the Phillies then having a lack of legitimate bullpen arms, it forced the Phillies to go out at the deadline and get Joan Duran. They paid a hefty price for him. They paid a starting pitcher, albeit 4 or 5 in Mick Gable, and they paid for Eduardo Tait, one of the best catching prospects in all of baseball. And that's a really stiff price because Eduardo Tait was scheduled probably to start the year in Double-A, and with JT Realmuto not getting any younger, that was a big price that the Phillies paid, essentially punting the future catcher in the organization and saying, all right, we'll figure it out later. Phillies end up getting Joan Duran. He's been exceptional in the role as a closer. He has been really, really good as advertised. That move has paid off for the Phillies right now. Eduardo Tait, by the way, is having a meh season in Double-A, although he's still very, very, very young. And that forced the Phillies to go out and actually get a legitimate closer. It was the suspension that led to the trade. Fast forward to this year. Phillies need a right fielder because Nick Castellanos is not coming back. He's getting paid $20 million to go home and hang out with the family. And the Phillies need a right fielder, and they signed Adolis Garcia for 1 year, $10 million. It is basically the same thing as Max Kepler. We are going bargain bin hunting. We are hoping to God that under our tutelage and under Kevin Long, we can get this guy back to where he was a couple years ago, which was like a 35 home run guy. And he comes in, and look, he looks the part. I mean, he looks like he's built like a tank, and he's very good defensively. But then the games got played. And Adolis Garcia was failing to do just about anything at the plate. He's hitting, I think, if he's not hitting under 200, it's damn close to 200. Like, it's barely at 200. I think it might be like 201. And he was playing a little bit better recently, but he wasn't anywhere near a legitimate right fielder. And without the injury, which he got placed in the 60-day DL, that seems precautionary. He's not going to play for the rest of the season. Without that, I am fully convinced again that Davey Dombo would have just stuck it out with Adolis Garcia. Because it's a bad look when you have to replace the guy that you have starting. And it seems like every year Dave Dombrowski goes bargain bin hunting and it doesn't end up bearing fruit at all. I think Matt Gelb had the tweet of like, out of the free agents that Dave Dombrowski has signed, like eight or nine or something have been released in season or before the season starts. Like, it's a really bad number. And then you factor in the Jordan Romanos, and like, that guy should have been released, so it really should be more than it actually is. Adolis Garcia was going to continue to hit around 200 to 210 all season long. He was going to pitch in, 15 to maybe 20 home runs if he ran into a few, but the dude is cooked. So the injury is going to force the Phillies to actually address the initial problem that they had in the offseason, which was, we need a right fielder. They weren't going to do it without the injury, but now the injury has presented itself and they need it, because Gabriel Rincones Jr., while I think has a future in Major League Baseball, I think it's probably a starter on a bad team or a bench bat on a good team. His calling card is his ability to work counts and get on base. He's probably not going to wow you with the bat. Takes a little bit of time. Last year, he really struggled at AAA, but he was continuing to get on base. Last 2 months at AAA, he really took off with the bat. He bumped up his batting average quite a bit, but he's a good prospect. He's solid, but I don't think he is a guy that you rely on if you are in a legitimate hunt, which the Phillies are. Dante Nori is at AA, and he's not playing well. He lit the world on fire last year. He had a hell of a year, but this year he is not playing well in a batter-friendly ballpark in Reading. He wasn't, I don't think, going to be an option anyway, because Rincones Jr. is ahead of him on the depth chart, but you're not going to go with the rookies. And what this is going to force the Phillies to do, again, is going out and addressing the actual need. And I think that Dave Dombrowski, because his hand is forced, he's going to go, all right, we might as well go out and get a really, really good one. My fear with all of this is they go out and they get Byron Buxton. Byron Buxton's name, like, I'm so sick of hearing about Byron Buxton from not only Phillies fans that just look at, oh, well, he's, Gold Glove and, All-Star. Byron Buxton's never healthy. Byron Buxton had 500 plate appearances last year. He's 32 years old. He's 12 years in the majors. That is the second time in his major league career he had over 500 plate appearances. He is Mr. Glass. When he's on the field, he is incredible. You are right. All the Phillies fans and the scribes and the people that are going to point to it, you're correct. He's really good when he's healthy. He's never healthy. So to go out and trade a high premium price for Byron Buxton and banking on the fact that he will be healthy, it's kind of like bringing Deshaun Jackson back, Like, the dude was littered with soft tissue injuries, and then we're all surprised when he got a soft tissue injury like 2 weeks into the season? No, we're not. You're playing with fire if you go out and you trade for Byron Buxton. And again, you're paying a premium price. I'm not somebody that's married to prospects, even though I do love the system and I love following them, but as I've gotten older, I've realized that all those prospects that I was in love with, the Michael Taylors of the world, they never really panned out. Adrian Cardenas, it didn't work. Carlos Tocci, I had to look inward and go, like, all these guys that Ruben Amaro traded, when you really look at it through the golden era of Phillies baseball, all those prospects, only maybe 4 or 5 had a legitimate major league career. It's like J. Happ, Travis d'Arnaud. I can't even give credit for Carlos Carrasco because he was designated for assignment by the Cleveland Indians. He was only brought back up because of injuries to their staff, and then after he was brought back up and put back on the 40-man roster, he became Carlos Carrasco. But they lucked out with that. Like, he was legitimately designated for assignment by that team. He wasn't performing well. So when you look at the litany of prospects that they traded away during that tenure, only a handful panned out. So it's not like I'm sitting here going, like, you can't trade this guy, that guy. There's a few that I'd go, okay, like, I'd really struggle trading that person, but I'm fine if the deal is right. And I don't think the deal for Byron Buxton would be worth it. Again, if he plays all the games, sure, great. You ended up, lucking out. But the dude is never healthy. So I don't have a name for you. I do think, though, that the Phillies have a rare opportunity to actually use their versatility in a way where it's advantageous in this situation. They have a first baseman that can play right field and is willing to move to right field. He was willing to move to right field if the Phillies wanted to sign Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso ends up going to the Baltimore Orioles on a massive contract. But he talked to the organization. He was like, look, I'll move back, all right, because I just want to win. The Phillies are not in a situation where they are only looking for a right fielder like a lot of teams would be. They're looking for a right fielder, but they could also be looking for a first baseman because they have an all-star right fielder. He's just playing first base. And he plays a really good first base, but it gives them options that a lot of teams wouldn't have in this situation. The problem I find with that is if you look around the market and you go, okay, like the right field market's not great, or maybe you're looking for a center fielder and you want to move Justin Crawford, whatever it is, and you go, okay, we want a first baseman. Well, most first basemen are power hitters. Like you don't have a lot of 20 to 25 home run first basemen. A lot of those guys are just straight up mashers. And if you're hitting 35 bombs a year, you're probably going to cost a lot. So I don't think this is a situation where the Phillies aren't going to pay a premium price. If they're going to go out there and get an all-star caliber right fielder or first baseman, they're going to pay a lot. I'm hesitant to go out there and say, all right, Byron Buxton. But the Byron Buxton stuff is not going to stop. I've been hearing about Byron Buxton's name for damn near 4 years. Dave Dombrowski seems to have a hard-on for the guy. Phillies fans and scribes seem to have a hard-on for the guy. They ignore all the warts, which is, again, he can't stay healthy. And they look at everything else, which, look, everything else is great. It's just 2 years in 12 is not a good number to have. So, but yeah, I think that the Adolis Garcia deal, the Adolis Garcia injury is a blessing in disguise for the Phillies. I think they'll benefit from it big time because it's going to force Dave Dombrowski to actually go out there and get a legitimate impact bat, which this lineup absolutely needs. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Is there a name out there that you want? I'm sure Mike Trout's name's going to get mentioned. I don't see that happening. But Trout and Buxton will probably be like the popular names amongst Phillies fans. But we'll see what happens. Let me know in the comment section as far as comments go. I'm only going to respond to channel members. So become a channel member, support the channel. Hit thumbs up if you like this video. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. Subscribe. Subscribing is cool. I'd appreciate it. And as always, go Phillies.
3%. I gave Justin Gaethje a 3% chance in this fight. Smash the thumbs down button because I don't know ball. The MMA community would say I am a, quote, hashtag casual, and then they hit me with a clown emoji. What a fucking war we just witnessed as Justin Gaethje does the improbable. He becomes the unified 155 champ, finally. And I could not be happier to lose my bets. I had Ilia Topuria. I had Ilia Topuria to win this one. I had Ilia Topuria to win by KO. I thought it was going to be one-way traffic. I thought Ilia Topuria was basically going to do what Ilia Topuria has done to just about everybody, and that is run through them. And Justin Gaethje had another thing. And I did my whole pre-fight. And I said, yeah, it's not going to be close. It's not, unfortunately. They're feeding Justin Gaethje to a killer in Ilia Topuria. And I didn't break down that Justin Gaethje had been in wars and Ilia hadn't. Maybe I should have. This is one of those fights, and this happens a lot with me personally, where as the fight is going on, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I probably should have thought about that. And in this instance, I probably should have thought about the fact that Ilia Topuria hasn't been in any real true wars, and that Justin Gaethje is, he's been in just about every war possible. Whether it be World War I, II, the Korean War, you name it, he's been in it. Iraqi freedom, been in all the wars. And Ilia has enjoyed running through people. And in this instance, he faced a guy whose coach is one of the best striking coaches in the game, in Trevor Whitman, and who was able to find a jab and stymie it. And look, for the first 2 rounds, it was looking like it was going to go Ilia's way. Although, when round 2 started, I was very, very surprised, and especially round 3. I was really, really surprised at how marked up Ilia's face was. Because the two were standing in the pocket, the two were trading, the two were getting after it, but it felt like Ilia's shots were landing more consistently than Justin's, and it felt like he was landing the more power shots as well. And as the fight progressed, all of a sudden that round 3 happened, and it completely changed. Round 2, Ilia almost finishes the fight. He's on top of Justin. He's mounting him. He's trying to get some submissions, and he runs out of time. But I'm sitting there screaming, dude, let him up. Your body shots are landing, and they're crushing. And they're really taking a lot out of Justin. If you let him up and stand him up and you just rip body shots, he's going to drop again, and you'll be able to finish it. But he wanted to go with the submissions, and it runs out of time. Round 3, it looked like Ilia Topuria was gassed out from trying to finish the fight and was willing to take round 3 completely off. And Justin turned it up. And man, at the end of round 3, it was a completely new fight. Because at the end of round 3, Ilya's still up 2-1. But the tide had completely turned in Justin's favor. The tide was completely turned at that point where the doctor has to come in, and by the grace of God, Ilya is able to continue to round 4, where I think everybody knew, including Ilya, like, I need to finish this fight in this round or else it's going to get stopped. I think, and it looked like, at least it sounded like, that Ilya quit on the stool and was like, no, I can't go. It sounded like Ilya's brother was like, we're going to finish this fight, and Ilya's like, I can't. And I think what did it is, I think that you're going to have a situation where Ilya gets transported to the hospital after this, and we're not going to get an immediate medical update. But I think Ilya broke his orbital bone with the jabs. Same jab that Trevor Whitman had for Kamaru Usman when Kamaru Usman defeated Gilbert Burns. Same jab. I think he broke his orbital his orbital bone, and I think he broke his ribs on that last knee. And that last knee was vicious. I mean, I'm doing a watch along on YouTube and TikTok, and I was like, oh God, like that was vicious. And I think that Ilya, for the first time in his career, just faced an absolute savage. He wasn't facing a 145er anymore. And I think, one of the reasons why I picked Ilya in this fight was the fact that against Charles, he was facing a legitimate 155er. And the way that he folded Charles was so impressive to me. And I think I might have picked Charles in that fight. At the very least, I picked it to go over a round. And Ilya just ran through him. And in this fight, I didn't give Justin a chance. And I was so happy to watch Justin destroy my bets and my parlays. Because, as I said in my pre-fight, Justin Gaethje is your favorite fighter's favorite fighter. I've loved this dude since he was in World Series of Fighting. And to see him get the legit belt, the unified belt, not the fake ones, not the interims, but the legit 155 belt, I'm so happy for him. So good for Justin Gaethje, man. I mean, what a night for him. And he'll finally be able to end his career saying, like, I was a unified UFC champion and not the interim bullshit. Because every time that this guy fights, it's a war. And I think this proved it. And damn, he put it on Ilya in those last 2 rounds and made him quit. And I didn't see it coming. Was dead wrong about it. Don't know ball, casual, all that. And you know what? I was dead wrong about the next fight we'll talk about, which is the co-main event. I got both these wrong. I was on a heater. Although it wasn't hard to be on a heater. I picked all favorites. But I was on a heater. And then the Poatan versus Cyril Gane fight happened, and the heater was ended. Flames put out. Yeah, I didn't think that Gane would be able to win a kickboxing fight against Pereira. And I thought that Pereira would be able to handle the power of heavyweight. And maybe that was just naivete on my part. But I thought Pereira was doing some good things. I thought it was a pretty even fight until he just got clipped. And I think what you saw is that Pereira is prone at heavyweight. He's fine everywhere else. Light heavy, he's fine. Middleweight, he's fine. Heavyweight's different. Now this puts the UFC in a bind, though. Because I think they were praying to God that Pereira won. So that you could have the legend, 3 belts and all that. And now you're setting yourself up for Cyril Gane against Tom Aspinall if he's ready. And more importantly, maybe, if the UFC is willing to pay because of the Eddie Hearn relationship. We all know that Dana White has a massive ego. This event was a prime example of that. Does he end up paying, or is there an Eddie Hearn tax where the UFC is like, you know what, Tom, fuck you, we don't need you. And they do. But, heavyweight is so incredibly shallow that their options are Cyril Gane and wait for Tom, where he already eye-poked him. And by the way, it's worth mentioning, I mean, this happens a lot of fights, but Herb Dean allowed it. Of course he did, because Herb Dean's trash. Cyril Gane got off like a good 4 or 5 back-of-the-head shots to Poatan. But there's Tom, or there's Alexander Volkov. And as I brought up time and time again, there isn't one hardcore UFC fan that wants to see Alexander Volkov fight for a title. He's earned it. But that's how shallow the division is. So I'm not looking forward to watching Cyril Gane's next fight, because I just don't view Cyril Gane as a legitimate heavyweight champion. I think he is in the same realm of like when Holly Holm was in that spot where every single time she fought, she was like one fight away from a title shot, no matter win or lose. The division was so shallow that it was like, we'll just throw Holly Holm in there. And I feel like Cyril Gane's the same way, where you look around and you go, all right, is he better than John Jones? Fuck no. We saw John run through him. And even though John's, 2 years removed from that fight, still he ran through him. Is he better than Francis? Probably not. Is he better than Tom? Probably not. Like, he might be the third or fourth best heavyweight in the world, and yet he's going to be fighting for the belt. Interim doesn't matter. And even, and I brought this up in my lives, but like that Paris card that he mentioned, he's not even the draw for me. The draw for me is Cedric Doumbé and Saladin Parnasse. And neither of those guys are even signed to the UFC. But those two are the draw for me for that card. Benoit Saint-Denis is more of a draw for me than Cyril Gane. And that just speaks, though, again, to the shallowness of the heavyweight division, where I think the UFC was praying to God that Alex Pereira bailed him out for the millionth time, and he couldn't do it. And the power at heavyweight was too much. And Cyril Gane was able to do to Alex Pereira what only one person was able to do, and obviously that is, Izzy. Oh, sorry, I am. It's like 1 a.m. Because of course it's 1 a.m. Because we had to get those cute vignettes. If Dana White's gonna pay all that money for those shitty AI videos, we needed to see him. We couldn't have this fight actually go. We couldn't speed this up. It's amazing how all of the fights on this card were finished. There wasn't one fight that went the distance, and yet it still ended at fucking 1:15 in the morning. All right. Next fight on the card was Sean O'Malley versus Eamon Zahabi, and that went about as well as the UFC had hoped. The UFC wanted to build up Sean O'Malley again, and they wanted to get Sean O'Malley not just a win, but a knockout. And I feel like they might have talked to Jason Herzog before this card and been like, hey, we need finishes. Speed it up. Because I like Jason Herzog, but he had a questionable move in the Bo Nickel fight, and then in this one, it was a little bit of a quick stoppage. Now, I don't think necessarily that Eamon Zahabi would have recovered, but I can tell you now, Herb Dean would not have allowed that walk-off. Herb Dean would have been like, Sean, no, fight. Hit him 4 more times. Give him CTE. Like that, but Herb Dean sucks. But this went about as well as the UFC could have hoped. This whole card to me was not for the diehards. This card to me was for the casuals. And this card to me was for the first-time UFC watchers. Because what they wanted to do with this card is they wanted to usher in a new generation. Whether it be, we are going to have a named guy in Derek Lewis, who casuals know. And the casual might not know Josh Hokett. But when Josh Hokett finishes Derek Lewis, now the casual wants to see Josh Hokett, because if Josh Hokett's finished the great Derek Lewis, he must be the real deal. You have a golden goose in Sean O'Malley. Oh, okay, yeah, the guy with the rainbow. Oh, okay, now I see why he's a big deal. He just knocked out Eamon Zahabi, and he flexed on him, and he did the salute, the walk-off salute. Like, that's cool as shit. The Pereira fight, as I said, I think they were praying to God that Pereira won, so they could go, look, this guy, 3 divisions, like, he is a killer. The next time that he headlines a card, you're going to want to watch it. I think they were trying to build up stars, and I think with the Sean O'Malley fight, they did that. I think that they were worried that, and I talked about this, if they gave him the Petr Yan fight, if Yan ends up winning, where does Sean O'Malley go from there? Could you even give him the fight after the Song Yudong performance? Like, it wasn't horrible. He won, but it wasn't like convincing, like he normally has. Like, he kind of needed this fight. I think after this fight, he will 1,000,000% get the Petr Yan fight, because I think the UFC realizes that if they give Merab his rematch, which, by the way, he deserves. He had how many title defenses in a row? Merab deserves that fight. But if they give Merab the Petr Yan rematch and Merab wins, you can't give Sean the next fight. You can't. He's fought him twice now and lost. It's like the Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway thing. Are we just going to keep giving Max rematches until he wins? You can't do that. So you'll give it to Sean, hoping that Sean wins, and when Sean wins, you give him whoever. Yeah, give him Merab because Sean's the champion. And I think that this was an example of, like, we'll build him up, we'll get him his knockout, and then we'll make the Petr Yan rematch, because the rematch writes itself. It was a really close fight the first time. I think Petr Yan won, but Sean O'Malley ended up getting his hand raised. So, yeah, that went about as well as you could have expected. And the next fight is Josh Hogan versus Derek Lewis. Talked about that a little bit. I think it was a lot of building up the quote-unquote next star, even though at this point I think everybody is sick of Josh Hogan's shtick. I think this weekend went a long way with people being like, dude, enough. It's not funny. It's not entertaining. It got to the point where when he hopped on the mic, I muted it. I don't want to hear it. Josh Hogan's the guy at your work that thinks he's hilarious, but he's not at all, and everybody leaves the room when he enters it. I don't think it's good for the UFC. I don't. And, you know, like, you've got Joe Rogan yucking it up with him and, like, slurping and looking at him as he's doing this shtick, like, oh. Joe Rogan's a fucking comedian. He knows what's funny. Like, this isn't even close to being entertaining. Sean O'Malley doing the walk-off salute is badass because Sean O'Malley is himself. Like, he's authentic. Pretty sure if you met Sean O'Malley on the street, like, he is that guy. You meet Josh Hogan, it's a horrible shtick, but he's got skills, and he showed them off. And unfortunately for Derek Lewis, like, he should just hang him up, and he won't. He needs to hang him up, but he won't. Josh Hogan went from what, fighting Curtis Blaydes, the number 5 ranked guy, to fighting Derek Lewis, number 9. So I don't really know where he goes from here, but he was calling out Pereira. If Pereira stays a heavyweight, maybe you make that fight. Maybe. Because ultimately, at the UFC, they know that Pereira is not a heavyweight. So maybe even to build up Josh Hogan a little bit more, you give him a 39-year-old fighter who is out of his division to just build up the legend. In a shallow division, mind you. But that fight went about as well as we all expected. And, yeah, it went great for the UFC who wanted to build that up. The Michael Chandler fight went same way. I mean, about as expected. The best part about the Michael Chandler fight is we didn't get a post-fight interview from Michael Chandler. It seems like win or lose, Michael Chandler always finds a way to grab the mic, and he didn't. He got finished badly. And it's hilarious because when you're watching, do me a favor, rewatch that fight. No, don't rewatch the fight. Rewatch the walkout from Michael Chandler and listen to the commentary crew try to convince you that Michael Chandler is legit. My favorite part of the little walkout was when he's about to enter the cage and they show the graphic. They show the stats, you know, like he's this record and blah, blah, blah. One of the things they put was KO'd Tony Ferguson. 2022. The man's last win in the Octagon was 4 fucking years ago. You had back-to-back fights tonight where both losing fighters should have hung him up. They should have dropped their gloves in the cage. Derek Lewis and Michael Chandler, and they won't. Michael Chandler came into this fight ranked 13th. He's going to find his way out of the top 15. You want to talk about cooked? And somehow, some way, he will find his way onto a main card. Some way. Somehow. The UFC will continue to put him on main cards, and he will continue to get run through. As I said in my pre-fight, he fought Dan Hooker on Dan Hooker's worst night, and he fought a cooked Tony Ferguson. He is now 2-6 in the UFC, I believe. And he's still talking about seeing people at the top while he's staring at the top from hell. Like, he sucks. But thank God we didn't get a fucking post-fight Conor McGregor call-out. Thank the fucking Lord. Bo Nickel versus Kyle Dawkins. Unfortunately for Kyle Dawkins, my Philly brethren, that went like I thought. The Jason Herzog thing that I mentioned earlier that I thought was questionable was Bo got a takedown really early on in that fight, and I thought he was doing enough damage. And this pains me to say because I can't stand Bo Nickel. But I thought he was doing enough damage. I thought he was being active enough to continue that position, and Jason Herzog stood them up, which was questionable. Got me thinking, like, were these guys told basically, like, we need finishes, don't have the fighter stalling? Normally, that shit doesn't happen till the last round, and it happened in round 1. And now they stood up, and Bo got the finish 30 seconds later. But this was another example of the UFC trying to build back up what they think is a cash cow. Now, the cash cow is 30 years old. The cash cow quit against RDR. The cash cow would probably get murked against every top 5 guy in the division. My favorite part of the fight was at the end of it when John Anik said, you got to figure a top 15 guy is up next for Bo Nickel. Sorry. He's how many fights into his career? How many years? And we're talking about getting a top 15 guy? This should have been a top 15 guy. But we have to build him back up. Because he's a name. So dumb. I hate the matchmaking. And then finally, the last fight of the night was Diego Lopez against Steve Garcia. And that went, yeah, as expected. Diego Lopez ended up knocking him out. Steve Garcia looked good until Diego Lopez landed one. It looked the entire fight, to me at least, like Diego Lopez's shots were landing way harder than Steve Garcia. Yeah, so there you go. I was riding that heater into the last 2 fights, lost both of them. Happy to lose both of them, though, because I love Justin Gaethje and I love the fact that he ends up getting the belt. It's interested to see where Topuria goes from here, because I think Justin Gaethje ends up getting beaten pretty badly by Islam, if Islam wants to come back down to 155. But I don't know where this division goes. Like, if Benoit Saint Denis ends up winning, does he get the belt? Does he get the title shot next? Like, it's going to be an interesting situation because you've kind of got that old guard at the top of this division. And I don't know where they all, I don't know, like, you can't get, does Charles Oliveira get a title shot? I don't know. I'm not trying to do MMA math here, but, like, he got knocked out badly by Topuria, but he beat the brakes off of Max convincingly. Like, do you give it to him? Like, where do you go from here? Armin's out there, but like Armin's fights once a year, so I don't know. But overall, look, the event was cool. The fights went about as expected, but they weren't for me. They were for the casuals out there, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean like they were trying to build up a new fan base. I'd have no problem if they did it at the White House every year. I thought like it was cool until eventually it just became like, can we just hurry this the fuck up because it's 1 o'clock in the morning? But overall, like, yeah, the spectacle was cool. I don't need the vignettes anymore. I'm good. Thank you. Don't need the history lesson. I went to school. Don't need this. I mean, I felt like at one point it should have been named like Corruption 250 because you had the crypto guy, you had Mark Zuckerberg. It was like the crypto guy's handing people belts. That was the worst part about it. It was like, politics aside, it was like the attendees of this. And then you've got DC sitting there talking about, if you would have told a kid from Louisiana, a poor kid from Louisiana, he'd be at the White House. DC, you can take a tour of the White House, my man. You're not doing a broadcast from the moon. You can take a tour. But overall, yeah, pretty much went about as expected. All right, I'll be back for 329. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section about these fights. Were you surprised or were you not? As far as comments go, I'm probably only going to respond to channel members, so become a channel member, support the channel. That'd be cool. It's pretty cheap. Hit thumbs up if you like this. Smash that thumbs up button if you thought it sucked. Subscribing. Do that, and I will see you next. Well, I'll see you for 329. Breaking news as the Philadelphia Flyers have made their first move of the offseason. In is Simone Benoit and Joseph Wall, a goalie. And out is Sam Urson and Emil Andre, and a third-round pick in this year's draft. I like the move for the Flyers. I think this is a no-brainer and a massive upgrade in goaltending. Now, with that said, I didn't think Sam Urson was good. I never thought Sam Urson was good. I looked at Sam Urson as like Timu Robert Esch, where like if everything broke right, he was a very, very, very mediocre goalie who could kind of convince you that he was good because Philadelphia has no idea what good goaltending is. It's been that long. But for the most part, he's going to also remind you often that he's just meh. Emil Andre, on the other hand, I think he had a chance. I think he had an opportunity to make it in Philly. The problem is, and Danny Briere talked about this, they're very, very small on defense. And he was like the third small defenseman, and he wanted to get bigger. And I'm talking I mean Danny Briere. So when you have like a Cam York and a Jamie Drysdale, he mentioned, having Emil Andre, it's just a small defensive core. They wanted to get bigger, hence trading for Simone Benoit. Simone Benoit is a 6'4" defenseman. He's fine if he's number 7 or 8. If he's on that third pair defense, I think you're okay. You're set. But this move is interesting because I look at it like, well, you want to get bigger. And that's kind of the reasons why you traded for Rasmus Ristolainen like 5 years ago. Now, granted, when you traded for Rasmus Ristolainen, Danny Briere was not in charge. That was a nice guy Chuck move, Chuck Fletcher. And I feel like ever since they did that move and they traded a first-round pick for Rasmus Ristolainen, and then they subsequently signed him to a ridiculous 5-year contract, they've been trying to recoup that first-round pick. And I wonder if this move is a sign that Rasmus Ristolainen will be traded during this offseason. They've been trying for damn near 2 years now to get rid of him. Trying to find a playoff team that is looking for the big hulking, physical defenseman. And maybe this year they'll finally be able to do it, because with the cap going up, that $5 million cap hit, it's much more manageable than it was a couple of years ago. So you might be able to find a team to take Rasmus Ristolainen. What I don't think you're going to have is, I don't think you're going to find a team that's willing to trade a first-round pick for Rasmus Ristolainen in this year's draft, because this year's draft is so deep. So I think you might be in a situation where you're looking at trading Rasmus Ristolainen. It's kind of like trading A.J. Brown. Like, you'll be able to get a first-round pick for him, but it'll probably be 2027, maybe 2028. But it probably won't be 2026 because the draft is so deep. I'm not saying that trading for Simone Benoit, a third-pair defenseman, is, bells and whistles. This isn't Mekhi Lemon getting drafted by the Eagles and it's like, okay, now it's definite A.J. Brown's out. This isn't that. But I just found it interesting that Danny Briere is talking about a small defensive core with Emile Andre, and you trade for Simone Benoit, and you've been trying to get rid of Rasmus Ristolainen. I'm just kind of reading between the tea leaves here. I wouldn't be surprised if, obviously, the Flyers keep him, but it kind of goes against the line of thinking I have with the Joseph Woll move. I wonder if the Flyers would have made this move had they not made the playoffs. Because I think the Flyers might have looked at it like, we could have made more noise in the playoffs if we had a more cohesive goalie tandem than we did last year. Last year, they didn't really have that. They were relying on Dan Vladar for the majority of it. And Joseph Woll gives them the opportunity to rest Dan Vladar a little bit more. I mean, Sam Urson was so bad, and they basically was a merry-go-round of backup goaltenders. And at one point, Dan Vladar went down, and it wasn't good. Joseph Woll is a solidified NHL goalie, and I think he's a really, really good backup on a decent playoff team. I think the Flyers are looking to make that next step, that next jump, and Joseph Woll is that. Joseph Woll was a guy that, look, when the Maple Leafs were good, when the Maple Leafs were a playoff team, Joseph Woll's numbers were good. He had a save percentage of like .909, goals against average of, 2.7, 2.8. He was a solidified backup goalie. Last year, everything went wrong for the Maple Leafs. And they were rewarded with that, with getting the first overall pick, but everything went wrong with them. And you look at some of the Maple Leafs numbers on paper, and Simone Benoit is the same thing. It's like, all of a sudden, it was like minus 22. Joseph Woll's numbers, horrendously bad. So I think if you're going off last year, you really shouldn't do that, because everything went bad for the Maple Leafs last year. Their defensive core wasn't good. Simone Benoit is part of that. But, it just all wasn't good. And a goalie needs a decent defensive core. The Flyers are trying to build that. They've put some work in trying to build up some of these guys, like Jamie Drysdale, taking him on. They made the trade for, begins with an R. Hit thumbs down for this. I'm drawing a blank. But, David Urich. They made that trade for him, former top 10 draft pick. He's now on his third organization, but they think they can get something out of him. And they're kind of played the slow game. And I don't necessarily disagree with it. But my point is, a goaltender is at times, not always, but at times, only as good as the defense in front of him and the scheme that they're playing. And last year in Toronto, it was really bad. So I just wouldn't judge anything that Joseph Woll did last year against him. I would look more at his career numbers, and career numbers are good. He's in the second year. This will be the second year of a 3-year deal at 3.6. The Flyers are going to lock up Dan Vladar for an extended period. I think Kevin Weeks had rumors that they're talking to him, but that's a formality at this point because he was so good last year. But that's another reason to like this trade. Is Kim Delabaugh, the Flyers goaltender coach, goalie coach, identified Dan Vladar as a guy that he wanted on this club. And at that point, Dan Vladar was an afterthought in Calgary, let alone the NHL. So if Kim Delabaugh did the same thing with Joseph Woll, you got to like that move. You got to have some faith in Kim Delabaugh and his eye for talent to be able to go, okay, I can work with this guy. I can get more out of him than Toronto did. And if, God forbid, something happened to Dan Vladar, we at least aren't panicking, whereas the Flyers are usually panicking. So
I really like the move for the Flyers. I think it's an upgrade. Trading a third-round pick in this year's draft, like whatever. I mean, you don't want to trade first-round picks, but third-round picks, fine. The Maple Leafs are rebuilding. This is a rebuilding move for them. Losing Sam Urson, no one's going to cry about that. Emil Andre was a forgotten piece in this organization. So I think this is an upgrade for the Flyers. Is it a massive upgrade? Is it one that you're going to sit there and, you know, be running out and grabbing jerseys and buying season tickets? No, it's not. But what it is that one of those minor moves where it could end up paying dividends down the line in season if, as I said, Dan Vladar goes down. Simone Benoit ends up being that physical force on the third pair. I don't think you want him on a first or second pair, that's for sure. But third pair, yeah, okay. And this is a move that I don't necessarily think the Flyers might have made had they not been a playoff team last year. But you speed up that rebuild because you were a playoff team. So you end up trading assets, draft capital. And look, the reality is eventually you're going to have to trade some of these prospects. Eventually you're going to have to trade some of this draft capital because everybody can't play. I think that's something that Charlie O'Connor said, which you can see the interview up there. But yeah, overall, I like it. It's going to be interesting to see what the Flyers do for the rest of the offseason, especially leading up towards the draft, how many more moves they make. As I said, Rasmus Ristolainen's probably on the table because he's been on the table for damn near 3 seasons now. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section about this trade, whether you like it, whether you don't. As far as comments go, I'm probably only going to respond to channel members, so become a channel member, support the channel. It's cheap and it helps. Hit thumbs up if you like this. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. Subscribing is cool. If you could do that, that'd be awesome. I'd really appreciate it. All right, I'm going to go now. I got a Costco chicken, so I got to tear that bitch up.